Honestly, I don't even want much. I just want you here with us, cause that right there is enough. Cause your presence is a present. Being with you, that's the biggest blessing. You don't have to buy a thing, don't even stress it. Just come home when you get this message, cause your presence is a present. Being with you, that's the biggest blessing. You don't have to buy a thing, don't even stress it. Just come home when you get this message. I just want you home, home. We just need you home, home. We really wish you were home, home. Please come home, home. Cause I just need you home. I just need you home. We really need you home. Please come back home. It's been a couple years since you went on. Tried to call, but heaven don't got a cell phone. Who's gonna sing out loud with me? Laugh at my jokes and say they proud of me. Pick me back up when I start doubting me. I see you in the eyes of your grandkids. It helps a little, but I still feel damaged. Your favorite color was like the uniform from UPS. Sometimes I feel like you the one that knew me best. I swear I'd do a couple backflips if it was you that they delivered in that package. All the questions that I would start asking. So till we're reunited, I guess I'll practice. Cause your presence is a present. Wow. Being with you, that's the biggest blessing. You don't have to buy a thing, don't even stress it. Just come home when you get this message, cause your presence is a present. Being with you, that's the biggest blessing. You don't have to buy a thing, don't even stress it. Just come home when you get this message. I just want you home, home. We just need you home, home. We really wish you were.
Welcome home, everyone. I am filling in for Mordecai today, so you all get my magic. There's me turning on my camera, which normally, I try to hide over in a corner. Welcome Lansing People's Assembly. And I didn't say welcome to Lansing People's Assembly. I said welcome Lansing People's Assembly because we, the people, are the assembly. Oh, happy Saturday. Welcome. Thank you once again for coming out and spending your time on a Saturday with us to grow and to build in community and in love. And as we know, this is our time to be together, co-creating the vision for the people, by the people. And we, the people, have lots of work to do as folks continue to jump in. We have, as always, a fairly full agenda today, but we are going to move at a little bit more of a relaxed pace today and spend our time together and really assess where we are and really envision how we're going to move forward together. So as you can see, our coordinating team has grown. Yay! We are so excited to welcome the Village Lansing to our awesome coordinating team. As always, TRHT holding it down. Thank you for making sure that TRHT Lansing is represented and is actively involved in helping shape what our community looks like. Making sure that we are building a racially equitable Lansing and that we're reaching all of our community to be a part of this assembly. Thank you on behalf of the wonderful organizations that I get to be a part of, Black Lives Matter Lansing, One Love Global, and Liberation PAC. Thank you all so much for your back and support, all of the things that people don't actually see that you do. And thank you to BLM allyship. We definitely appreciate you helping to help people find their way, meeting people where they are, and hopefully bringing more people into the support of our community to improve outcomes for Black lives. So thank you all. And if your organization is interested in being a part of that coordinating team, some of you have already signed up as facilitators and you've been holding it down when we go to breakout sessions. Thank you. But if you'd like to actually have your organization become more formally involved as a part of the coordinating team, we certainly welcome you. Let us know. So again, welcome to Lansing People's Assembly. I am Sean Holland, Pastor Sean Holland. Just kidding. I'm Angela Waters Austin, filling in for Pastor Sean Holland today, who we lovingly refer to as the mayor of our Lansing People's Assembly. He is an amazing facilitator and presenter. And if you've been in my facilitation or presentation space, you know that I'm not even going to try to measure up to a pastor. It's just not going to happen. So I'll do my best to move us lovingly along and stay on time today. And Angela Waters Austin, that's my name. And my pronoun is love. And, that's actually come into question. So I want to pause there because I believe in transparency and accountability. And why do we use pronouns? Why is it important? Not everybody understands why we actually share how we prefer to be identified. I chose my pronouns as an ally, as an accomplice for my children. My children transformed my life. And being in Black movement and being loved and held and led has really transformed my understanding about identity, about gender, about the ways that we get to define who we are and to name ourselves and to invite people into honoring what that means. So I'm going to ask you to share your name and your pronouns in the chat. And if you have some good news, because today is about good news and we're going to celebrate some small wins, please share yours with us to get that kind of winning energy. We want that winning vibe here today. Anna, she heard good news. You helped place an old, sick, blind dog whose person died suddenly. Oh, Anna, yes. Yes, thank you for that. That is good news. Jessica, she heard good news. You cleared your last hurdles to move back to Lansing where you were born and raised. Welcome back. Yes. Oh, Peggy. Oh, Peggy, I love you. Welcome. She, her, spring has arrived. Yes. Jordan. Oh, you're going to hear from Jordan today. Accomplished some tech stuff. Woo-hoo. Yes. Ash Meadow, pronouns, they, them, theirs. Some good news is that you finally got to speak with your attorney who is helping you with your name change legally. Pro bono, yes to pro bono services, and yes to claiming your name. Yes. Sarah, welcome. She, her, hers. Chris Root, welcome. She, her. Glad that the East Lansing Study Committee on Police Oversight will finally have a community meeting this Monday, March 29th. What time, Chris Root? We are sharing it on the Black Lives Matter Lansing page, and we want to make sure that everybody is there to learn the great work that you all have been doing and how we can support as regional partners. Welcome, Zach, he, him. Your partner is a hero and is redoing your whole backyard. That is great news. Love it. 6 p.m. on Zoom for East Lansing on Monday. Claretta, welcome. She, her, they, them. Good news is that you passed your written paramedic exam. So moving on to getting on Lansing Fire Department. Yes, if you know this story, then you are celebrating with Claretta. Yes, yes, yes. 0 women on Lansing Fire Department, let alone 0 Black women. Thank you, Chris. Yes, please share the link. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so thank you for sharing that good news. Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Some of your winter bulbs are actually growing. Yes. Thank you. All right, Chris, thank you for dropping the link in the chat. Welcome to Bias. Great events with Poor People's Campaign. Yes, 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 yes. Keep up the great work. Heidi, crocuses and daffodils are popping up. Oh, yes, flowers, spring. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Keep it coming. Great. They, them, welcome. 0 Black women. They have white passing women on LFD. Not a lot, but they are there. Thank you. 0 Black women, but there are women. Okay. Not a lot, but they're there. Garlic is popping up too. Sam, welcome. After a great deal of difficulty holding on a job, happy to mark a month at a very fulfilling, well-paying new job. Yes, that is absolutely worthy of celebration. Outstanding. Ooh, feel the energy of the good news. Yes. All right, let's go. Moving on. Welcome, everyone. All right, so we just kind of glossed over the organizations that are involved, but it takes a lot of us to make this assembly possible and consistent and pretty. And I want to thank our team, our moderators, our hosts, our tech support, and our facilitators. Let's celebrate them because they make all of this possible and keep us moving. So yay to our team. Awesome. Thank you. You've met Sarah, you've met Jordan. I'm like, everybody in here is a part of the team now. Like, we've been here month after month. So yay, celebrate yourself for being here. And so what have we been working on? Like, here we are coming up almost on a year, that call to action day when we declared that we wanted some changes in our city. And we invited folks to be in accountability and partnership with us. And in that time, we have embraced the BREATHE Act, federal legislation that looks and feels like the Civil Rights Act of our time. Not of any era, but of our time, that recognizes that we actually have to get to the root and we actually have to dismantle the policies and the practices and the culture that actually maintains racial hierarchy. So the BREATHE Act has learned from movement. It has learned from past civil rights acts. It has learned about how electoral justice can and should produce better outcomes, and bringing all of that wisdom and knowledge and, quite frankly, pain and trauma into the center of what a visionary bill can look like, that not only has impact at the federal level, but actually assists us at the state level and in our local communities to shape and transform the policies that ultimately impact our lives. And writing policy in such a way that it actually dismantles systems that harm and allows us as a community to build systems that heal. So we are going to follow similar course that we do from month to month. We've done our welcome. We've introduced ourselves to some extent. And we are going to really talk more about this process. So you may have noticed that we're live today. Normally we're in here together in our little space and we're huddled up and we do this work. And we've gotten to a point now where we really want to be accountable to the community and to really share what we've been doing. What have we actually accomplished in the time that we've spent together over these past, 6-7 months, maybe longer? I lose track of time. Okay, 2020 is a blur and 2021 is just as blurry. So I think that's fair. But we want to help everyone who is tuning in from Facebook or learning just about the People's Assembly for the first time, what we do, why we do it, how we do it. And then we'll spend some time talking a little bit about the mayor's budget that was introduced at City Council on Monday. And then we're going to celebrate some wins. And then we're going to go right back to the work that we've been doing here. We'll pause for a minute, celebrate, because that's important. Let's claim our victories. They're not always big and they don't always happen frequently or even in the way that we might want, but we're going to claim them and we're going to celebrate and we're going to build on that. We will have a little bit of time at the end for us to be flexible. I think we'll see how we do, because I'm talking a lot, so I realize I'm consuming time that may Sarah and Jordan are like, nope, you're good. Okay, thank you. All right. So, and then we have so many amazing announcements. Like the wind, like the celebration of spring. We've got some really beautiful, creative and innovative work in our community that we are excited to share. And then we'll say goodbye to you until next month or in between if you're doing some working group stuff. All right, let's do it. So what is a People's Assembly anyway? We are following a model that was taught to us by Rukia Lumumba in Jackson, Mississippi. She actually came here to Michigan and she co-facilitated with us here in Lansing as well as in Detroit. And the assembly is, like as we described, it's a space for co-creation and co-governance. Building a space where people in the community can actually have a voice in shaping what government looks like, what policy looks like, and in a way that is more than 3 minutes of public comment. Because if you, and most of you have been in public comment at some point over the last year, using your 3 minutes time after time after time, and you know that there's no feedback there. There's no accountability. We throw our voices into the void and hope that it lands on someone and they'll do something. People's Assembly is about us democratizing data, making that information accessible, about how we come together and center the people who actually are impacted by the policies, and putting that on the front end so that we actually bring a racial equity lens to our work and anticipate what the potential consequences of our decisions can be. It's where we bring our collective vision and priorities together in ways that actually improve all of our lives. And it actually makes our entire region a place that's safe and welcome and thriving for all of us. And as we come back full circle to the call to action, it's about holding elected officials accountable. This is where we really get to process the decisions that are being made by the people who were elected to represent us, and to determine whether or not they're meeting the mark and what we can do as a community to actually help them do a better job on our behalf. Ultimately, the People's Assembly is about taking action and delivering results, because no one needs a meeting on Saturday where we just come in here and talk about it and complain about it and nothing changes. I wouldn't go to that meeting and I wouldn't invite you there. So let's get to work. Beloved community, we embrace the idea, the vision of a beloved community in the way that Dr. King spoke of it and envisioned it. And I can only imagine what he would feel and what he would say and what he would be doing right now in this moment, where Georgia just passed the most cruel and vicious and supremely racist legislation to not only deny a person a vote, but even a cup of water. We're so far from a beloved community in the bigger sense, but what we're going to celebrate today is this beloved community that we are building right now. You're here because you believe in it, because you can smell it, you can taste it just like I can. It's right there. And we're building it little by little by little, recognizing that what we do today, we may not even reap the benefits of. But as Mordecai reminded me this morning, and please send your love to Mordecai. He is at the funeral service for Pastor Jesse Brown, who passed from COVID. And so let's just send him a little love and lift him up. But recognizing that a beloved community no longer has the conditions that create crime and violence. We can't predict outcomes for people by race. We should no longer be able to say, well, you know, we know that the people at the bottom are going to be Black or brown. We shouldn't have a bottom. That gap between the bottom and the top is what we're really working to close. Because of racial hierarchy actually depends on economic hierarchy. Racism exists. Race was born out of a desire to subjugate some people so that others could become wealthy. And so we really, as a community, have to begin to unpack and decolonize the way that we're in relationship and the way that we make decisions, and even who gets to make decisions on our behalf. Why are some leaders trusted and others not? When we call for collective action as a community, why are our voices not as respected or honored or prioritized as other voices? We hope that you feel welcome. We hope that you feel safe here. The work that we're doing collectively is so that's true for everyone. We've named our priorities. We named them together. We didn't come into this space and say, these are our priorities, sign on to them. We created them together as community. Our first People's Assembly, we had, I don't know how many hundreds of people here. And I look and I see that we're a pretty small group today. I don't think that's unlike most initiatives there is a life cycle to movement. There is an energy and a rhythm to movement. And I see some consistent people who have been here from day one. And I see new people who are joining us for the first, second, third time. And it's up to us to grow our community with people who actually share our priorities. What does it mean to defund the police and invest that money in our community? What does it mean for those who actually are most directly impacted to be making the decisions about where funds go? Who are the organizations who serve their community, who actually are the first touch, who really are truly the first responders? And what support and resources do they have? We also know that ensuring living wages for people will solve so many problems. When we talk about a rise in violence over the last year, we cannot allow elected officials to have that conversation and to create a narrative that suggests that police are the solution, when we know that the roots of violence are poverty, our lack of access to the kind of services and supports that we all need. And even if we individually may not need it, even more so, we should be fighting for those who do. This is a space where we are demanding that people actually have a chance to rise out of poverty, that they actually have what they need to change the conditions in which they live. And I don't know how we define a living wage anymore, because I suspect it's a lot more than $15 an hour. But we have to name a thing to get to a thing. How do we then divert funds to the community programs and mental health help that we know that police are being called to and are absolutely the last call that we need to make? How do we ensure that people have access and opportunity to actually grab a hold of what our community partners are providing? And how do we actually invest in the kind of innovation that, quite frankly, hasn't been able to exist because our community has been divested from. Funds for violence prevention programs, for supportive services. These things used to exist in our community. Lansing used to have a thriving community of employment programs, even youth employment. There used to be a whole system of youth employment here. I got a summer job at Barryama's Cleaners when I was in high school, paid for by our youth employment system. Those things don't exist anymore. I'm dating myself. There used to be a YWCA downtown that I used to run those programs out of. It doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, our priorities. Our priorities are based on the experiences of people in our community as they should be. Lansing Urban League, absolutely. They were one of our primary partners. That's right. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, we think about the resources that used to be in our community to help people that just don't exist anymore. And think about the capacity of the organizations that do that work and how limited they are to be able to have the impact that they should. We can do things differently. We get to make choices. So we're going to ground ourselves today. Well, what are we grounding ourselves in? We're going to ground ourselves in truth. We're going to ground ourselves in assessing how far we've come in a year. And we're going to ground ourselves in those wins that will give us energy to know that we are actually making a difference, right? So Monday, Monday budget. Andy Shore presented his budget, and so in addition to the existing city budget, we learned that Lansing is expecting an allocation of $50 million for COVID relief funds. This is going to be a one-time cash injection into our community, and we heard that already a significant portion of that has been earmarked to fill deficits and losses from city revenue. I can't recall the number, but it was not maybe half, pretty close to half. If anybody was in that session can recall that number better. And also announced in that session was that $20,000 was reinstated for My Brother's Keeper. I just want to make it known that the original line item was $100,000, and that $100,000 was actually what we got when we asked for $1 million to be taken from the police budget and created into a line item that the community controlled. The former administration, the former mayor, actually responded to our protest at City Hall. Mind you, it didn't happen when we sat at the table for years doing My Brother's Keeper work without any resources. It happened when Black Lives Matter actually organized the community and had a protest at City Hall. That's when we actually got the line item. And one of the conditions was that the community control that line item. That community control has not been reinstated. Since that time, One Love Global has continued to be our community's contact. We are the designated entity and organization that convenes My Brother's Keeper, not just for Lansing, but for the state of Michigan. When I asked Andy Shore why he would eliminate that funding from the budget in his very first budget, he said, well, you just got $1 million. Why do you need that money? You have that $1 million, you don't need this funding. I am pretty sure that the city can't just move money around. At least I hope that's not what's happening. But you can't just take funding from one source and put it into another. That's not how it works. And also, who determines how much is enough? Why is it that, oh, you have $1 million to do this work? Mind you, $1 million over 5 years is not a whole lot of money. But for one person to determine you have enough How much money does it actually take to dismantle structural racism that has existed for centuries? I don't know, but I know it's more than $20,000. I know that it's more than $100,000. I know that it's more than $1 million, which is why we need a people's budget. What does a budget look like that actually puts people at the center, that puts people first? If you look at the budget, if you look at the pie now, they've worked the magic, and it looks like policing is a much smaller piece of the pie, when actually an announcement was made at City Council that they put more money in the police budget. So what does it mean when our city administration is literally manipulating data in a way that makes it appear that progress has been made, when in reality, the opposite is happening? That's why we exist. That's why we're here, because we actually have to tell the story behind the data. What is the story behind the way that the budget is presented? Why would the mayor choose to put $20,000 and call it done and call it a reinstatement without any communication with the organization that actually runs the program? We had no idea that funding was going back in the budget until it was announced at the meeting. I'll let you draw your own conclusions on why that was done. So let's celebrate our wins. Yes, the fact that the mayor thought that putting that back in there was going to be a good look, even that's a win. Doesn't feel like a win, but it is a win. It is a win because our actions have demanded a response. In the past year, starting with our call to action, where Ingham County Health Department made a commitment on the spot to declare racism a public health emergency. That was a win. The city council, let me be clear, Lansing City Council unanimously passed a resolution declaring a very similar resolution shortly thereafter. East Lansing did it on their own without us asking. That's a huge win. Now, once you declare something an emergency, a pandemic, a crisis, wouldn't you expect there to be some kind of urgent response? If I called you and told you that my house was on fire, would you show up next week? Next year? So this is why accountability is so important. We didn't call a committee when the pandemic hit. Actually, the way that the pandemic has been handled is a whole other conversation. That's a whole other conversation about the failure of government to put the people first. But the work has spread throughout the region. East Lansing is now exploring what it might look like to envision a Breathe Act for East Lansing. That's huge. And why? Because of the data that shows, just like Lansing, this is about to come out, that even though procedures were changed on traffic stops, even though the kind of things that you can stop people for, all of those things have changed. Even policies on how incidents of violence are reported when police commit misconduct. So Lansing has managed to shrink the number of traffic stops, but you know what didn't shrink? The proportion of Black people stopped. So training did that. reform did that. And we actually learned that while we were protesting and mourning the murder of George Floyd, with a police officer kneeling on his neck, staring into the camera proudly, we learned that our city was covering for murder in city jail. Anthony Hulan was murdered in Lansing City Jail in April. And we didn't find out about it, and we would have never known if his family hadn't filed a wrongful death lawsuit. We also learned that those officers were returned to work in the same position without discipline, without any action being taken, even to move them to a different job. They didn't miss a day of work that we know of. And now we learn that there's an investigation outside of our department because it would have simply gone on business as usual without any consequence. And that could have been us. That could have been any one of our loved ones. So $500,000 has been budgeted for racial equity in Lansing, roughly. So that funding is allocated for consultants, for training, I think for assessment, and for producing reports. What would you do with $500,000 if you actually wanted to invest in community-driven solutions and you wanted to put the people at the center? So as much as I can critique the mayor's appointed Racial Equity Alliance, it wouldn't exist without us. It simply would not exist without us. There would be no recommendations, there would be no plans, there would not be this money in the budget if we had not continued to demand accountability. So no, it doesn't look like the win that we envision, but it's a win. And we're going to claim it because you better believe they will. So having My Brother's Keeper and Girls Equity Network back as a line item isn't a win for us, really. Mordecai has been working hard for months to prepare for the relaunch of My Brother's Keeper and Girls Equity Network. And it has nothing to do with a commitment from the city of Lansing, just so you know. Mordecai is working closely with the amazing partners of the Obama Foundation who has continued to support our work. So we'll have an announcement about that. So it's not just the city, it's the county. And I'll share with you that we actually got a request from a person who works at Ingham County for us to also bring Ingham County into our work and to actually open a conversation about accountability in Ingham County. That's a lot. That's a big lift. But this is regional. And we know that so many of the services and resources and funding actually are county resources and county controlled. So if we actually want to see the impact, if we actually intend to move resources in a way that center the people, we have to invite the city and Ingham County and our regional municipalities into this conversation. Lansing spills over multiple counties. That means that we actually need to invite people in from across the region into the People's Assembly so that there's representation and leadership from all of our communities and that we're working together for a regional solution. On Monday, it was also announced that the city of Lansing would be matching funding from Ingham County for a violence prevention program where many community organizations who had been involved in early conversations about this, what appears to be an awesome program created by a Lansing native. Mr. Bogan, thank you for your work across the country and sharing the model of advanced peace with Lansing. It's a community-based, community-driven model that is really about the grassroots community and folks who are trusted in community doing the intervention to disrupt violence. So in and of itself, you know, admirable, laudable, great. Just want to name that we are now got the city and the county who, unbeknownst to us, we're actually working to put this funding together. And they made the announcement and named a lot of the organizations who had been involved early on. And it was our understanding that police would not be involved. It was specifically asked that because of the community demanding accountability, that the city not be invited as a partner. We can't continue to operate this way. That's why we have a co-governance space. And when you bring community into a conversation to make decisions, honor those relationships, honor those voices, and please stop thinking you know what's better for us. Nothing for us without us. We've seen a lot of optics. We've seen a lot of public relations. When we called for the mayor's resignation last year, it wasn't election season yet. We're in election season and it's already so messy and vicious and not at all about the people. It is Black Lives Matter is really working hard to make sure that people remain at the center of this election season, that our issues are absolutely on the ballot. And Black Lives Matter is not alone. We have Poor People's Campaign representatives here. We have Voters Not Politicians. We have Indivisible. We have so many organizations represented here. The East Lansing Oversight Commission. I'm like just looking through here at Firecracker Foundation, like all of these organizations who have committed to this work. And I want to thank Brian Jackson for being here today. I see you. I see you, City Council member, being here with your community to co-create and to co-govern. Yes, that's what it looks like. That's why we chose this model. Jackson, Mississippi, their People's Assembly, when their mayor ran, they chose their mayor. He ran for mayor because the community chose him as their candidate and they got fully behind him. And their campaign was, "We are the mayor." And that's who we are. We, the People's Assembly, we are the mayor. We are the People's City Council. And Brian, I just want to thank you because we take co-governance very seriously. When we show up at City Council week after week, getting our 3 minutes in, it's because we value the process. And we are actually trying to restore hope in what a democracy can look like, while our rights are being violated daily. And while Michigan State Legislature right now is introducing bills, joining in to try to create another Georgia here. It's gonna take all of us, not just in Lansing. We're gonna have to work across our state. So the more organized that we can be here in our community, the better chance we have of holding on to what's left of our democracy and clawing our way back forward to a democracy that really never existed. So yay, We did some things. People are responding. They know they're accountable. Yes. Celebrate those wins. Celebrate those wins. Now we just need to move it into a space of community control. Because what I just laid out is that so many decisions are being made on behalf of the people, the most directly impacted people who are not the folks invited. You know, Mayor didn't appoint those folks to the alliance. They weren't appointed to his diversity council. He is not going to invite people who actually will demand accountability and who are not there to represent their own interests, but who actually represent the interests of people who have experiences outside of their own. Because I don't claim to be the most directly impacted. Like, I am not about the oppression Olympics. I enjoy a great deal of privilege. And as you've heard me say in this session before, I live in Delta County. One Love Global is a Lansing organization. We chose to be on the south side of Lansing because we are deeply committed to Lansing and the people of Lansing. So whatever power and privilege and position any of us has, how do we use it? I happen to have a platform called Black Lives Matter Lansing that I get to use. But we have to move towards community control where decisions are not being made that will impact our lives that we have no voice in until after the fact, because it's exhausting to show up week after week after week and yell for 3 minutes about something that has already happened. While our city council members just wait for it to be over. Like literally counting the minutes down until they can be done hearing from us. It's not effective. We do it because it's our right to do it, but it's not effective. So decisions that made outside of our community includes who's on these alliances, who's on these councils, who's on these task forces. There was a time that I would have been that person. I was actually asked to be on the mayor's diversity council, and of course I said no. So decisions to allocate what racial equity work looks like is training, assessment, and producing reports. Who made that decision? Who decided who the consultant would be? Because it was literally one day at city council, here's the consultant, here's how much money we're paying them. Was there actually any determination of whether or not they were the best solution for the need, or were they the best political solution for the mayor? Because the cults can, you know what? I'll just leave that there. Was the consultant the best fit for the people of Lansing? Who made that choice? The mayor. The person who is defending himself against 9 racial discrimination lawsuits chose who the consultant would be to help the city address racial equity. Increasing the police budget for any reason was clearly a decision that the community did not support. And when I say the community, I mean us. We don't speak for everybody in Lansing, and clearly there are plenty of people that do not agree with us. But they also are not impacted by those decisions. The people who want more money in police budgets are not the people being stopped. They're not the people whose family is being murdered in the jail. Who is making decisions for a community that are directly impacted? Not us. Economic development. I don't know how many city council meetings we heard about shuffleboard. Are you excited about shuffleboard? And I don't know, I just like being from Detroit, I think it's interesting that the company has Detroit in their name and actually don't reflect anything about Detroit culture and history that I know of growing up in the city of Detroit. But of all of the things that you could find in Detroit to bring to Lansing, you found shuffleboard? Okay. And back to the loving place. So can we have a conversation about what economic justice actually looks like? So the BREATHE Act, economic justice, environmental justice, education justice, reproductive justice, disability justice, like immigration justice, it's all in there. The people are all in it, where we make decisions about what economic development looks like. That doesn't look like gentrification, that doesn't fuel it, that doesn't have people coming into a community and then making the people who have lived in that community feel like they're the outsiders, and then weaponizing police. So that's the thing, police and gentrification go hand in hand. If we need a more clear grasp of that, pull up Los Angeles and the number of homeless. Actually, you know what? Let's just look at the homeless and how they're being treated in our community. People who are unhoused in Lansing and where they get pushed from and to, all of those things are related to economic development. Why do we not actually have a solution for houselessness? It's an economic development decision. These are choices that we make. And, you know, I don't know who is leading and making decisions about our homeless community out of the city of Lansing right now, but pushing people out of the only home that they know and where they feel safe in the name of safety, that ain't it, y'all. That ain't it. So who gets funding, who doesn't? Well, that's going to be determined by your work. We're going to determine who gets funding and who doesn't as a community. Like, we actually get to call these things. We get to name these things. And so I'm going to turn it over. I've talked way more than I thought I would. But some things just need to be said. And so thank you for your patience and your attentiveness as I said them. And I am going to invite my awesome family, Sarah Gettle and Jordan Scrimger, to take it from here.
Hello, everybody. So over the past, couple of weeks, as we've immersed ourselves into the BREATHE Act and what it represents and how it aligns with our priorities, I've had the honor of really diving into the template that's been given to us to adapt for the Lansing community. And I think it's so powerful, Angela, to hear you talk about these are choices, the people deciding what we need and want. People write our current existence into existence, right? And this is policy that puts that back into the hands of the people to decide those things and to write the policies that actually serve us, because policy is often this invisible sort of undercurrent, but it results in real life experiences and outcomes. And so this is our opportunity to take that into our hands and to get into work groups and really dive into the BREATHE Act and how it can serve us. And I know it says explore time, but we're going to hold off on that piece really quickly. What I'm going to do for us really quickly is to give us a preview. I've been working on some supportive materials that will help, I think, structure and maybe guide the work groups around the BREATHE Act a little bit. And so I'm going to share with you some of those things that I've been working on. I'd love to hear feedback about what else would be helpful. Because in next People's Assembly is really when we're going to be diving into work groups, and there'll be communication ahead of that People's Assembly about who is in what work groups and how that will look a little bit more. But in between now and then, we really want to give you the opportunity to dive into some of the things we're starting to build, and so you could weigh in on what would be helpful for you. And so bear with me for a minute. I'm going to stop screen sharing and pull up some of the resources. And also, Angela and Sarah, welcome you at any point to add details if I miss anything. So I'm going to stop sharing really quickly. Okay, hop on over here. So can everybody see this part of my screen now? Yeah, okay, cool, thank you. So as I said, I've had the opportunity to really dive into the local roadmap for the BREATHE Act. So the BREATHE Act is this federal piece of legislation that's forthcoming, and the same teams that built that and wrote that have also created roadmaps at the state and local level. And so this is coming directly out of that local roadmap. And so we're going to give you the links to these things. And actually, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind maybe posting the first one, thank you, in the chat. The link that you'll get is going to link directly to this folder that I'm looking at now. And it has each of the 4 work groups divided. And in each of the folders, I'm just going to go into the work group 1 folder here. And you'll have to stick with my internet connection, however quickly it loads or doesn't load. But in each of the work groups so far, all we have is 1 document for you. And it is, so last week we were looking at the roadmap with all of the different links that link to all the different sections. And so what I've done is to combine all of those like subsections into 1 document per section. And so this is just from the first work group, which is about divesting from harm. And so it's loading, but at the front of each document, there will be a table of contents. And so the table of contents will sort of lay out what is in each section of the BREATHE Act at the community level. And so you can see here that, you know, the first provision in the section or the first subsection, I try to keep the language consistent because I know we were finding some difficulties with that last time that we were on, we were in the space together. But you see that the BREATHE Community Declaration is first up, and then we have direct changes to law enforcement, ending mass criminalization, a mass criminalization task force, and so on and so forth. And so you can see those things here. And if you notice any broken links or anything, feel free to fix them, right? Actually, this is open to you all to go in and edit, but hopefully everything should be about right. And if you click on these things, they'll take you directly to that point in the document, because these might feel a little bit lengthy. So if I click on provision 3, it'll bring me down, and you'll see that there's a lot of brackets in the language here, and those brackets are really meant for us, right, to write this to fit the Lansing community. So there'll be opportunities to do research and find out like what applicable agencies should be inserted into a particular part of the language here, and that will be a part of the work of the work groups in each of these sections. And so you'll see points at which maybe you have to insert a date, and again, the executive, who we know. And so all these documents will be a little bit different based on the section and the policy ground that it covers, but they will be similar in that, you know, you will have to kind of craft these and shape these to fit our region. And so that's what each of the work group folders look like. And I'm just going to kind of go back to this landing page here. I also created a toolbox for us. And so you can also open up that presentation. And so the first page of this toolbox is really just if you lose the links to any of the other work group folders, you can come back here and find them, as well as if you need to check in with another work group's project or progress or anything like that, if you want to cross-reference. Particularly section 1 and 2 go hand in hand, right? We divest from harm while funding new infrastructure for public safety. We do those things hand in hand with one another, and so there's a lot of confluence between those 2 sections. And I know there's probably some things happening in the chat, so feel free to interrupt me, Sarah, at any point if I should slow down or answer any questions or anything.
You're great. We're actually just celebrating you, Jordan.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And so on this first page of the toolbox, I tried to link, and so throughout you'll see I've tried to link things that I hope are helpful in some ways. And so on this first page here, these are Lansing area resources, and maybe you're already familiar with some of them. I'm not really certain. I don't think these things are ever that publicized, right? Even though they have a direct impact on our experiences and how we move in the community. But this Citizens Handbook is the first thing that's linked here. And it's just kind of a helpful guide to different resources from the city of Lansing, and it's produced by the mayor's office, I believe. So that might be a starting point if you're trying to look at like what agencies or committees or commissions exist. However, the second thing here is the city charter. And the city charter is really the document that sets up the city's organization. It's kind of like the city's constitution, and it's the starting point for all other regulations. In Michigan, we have a degree of home rule, which means that Lansing is given, freedom from the state of Michigan to determine its own structure. And so this is really that governing document, the city charter. And you'll see that it outlines the powers of the city, the structure of the city government, how city elections are run, all of those types of things. And in case you didn't know, actually the responsibility for adopting the city charter and amending it lies with the elected charter commissioners. And the changes are voted on by a local referendum. So, the people of Lansing actually authorize the adoption of the charter as well as amendments. And if you go into the city charter, I said that page 28 has details on who those commissioners are, as well as when it was last updated. The final thing on the slide here is the municipal code, which has all of the ordinances that have been passed in the city of Lansing kind of organized and so they're placed into the city code, and it's arranged in subject order. And so you should be able to kind of flip through it and find sections that might be particularly relevant to your work group and your policy area. And so that you can more easily access what laws are already on the record. Like, are we looking at amending something that already exists? What would it look like to move from what we already have to what we want? What's that difference? The second general slide here is on navigating legalese, right? I'm not a lawyer either. Maybe we do have lawyers in the People's Assembly today, and that would be helpful resources to know of, really. But so there's some resources on, right, the purpose of local Michigan ordinances here that you can read more on. There's some guides to like, how do we write resolutions and ordinances, which they look like. There's a example resolution linked here. And then for more detail, we've talked before in our People's Assemblies about the difference between having a strong mayor system versus a strong council, and those differences. And so this is an overview of the different configurations that exist in Michigan, as well as more about the charter revision process. So we might find that things in the Breathe Act, maybe they're enshrined in the charter, or maybe we need to pass a new ordinance. And I know we even talked about, if those options are foreclosed to us by political will, is ballot initiative something that we might have to think about. And so there's even a local ballot initiative process kind of guide linked here. And so in our working groups, we're going to have to be deciding, like, navigating what we already have and moving to this. Like, are there different options available to us? What might that look like? And then a general how a bill becomes a law. And this is at the state level, but it is quite similar to the way it's passed. And I think there are helpful kind of references within that will apply to the local level. And if we keep moving a little bit, you'll notice I'm trying to keep everything very color coded. So not only will you know your work group by its title, if you're in the divest work group, if you're in the work group around creating new public infrastructure, or creating opportunity, or if you're in the accountability work group, those are the four. You'll also have a color, and so maybe that will be helpful to remember as well. And so in the slides on each of these sections, I started to link things, right? Because I've spent a lot of time looking at the language already. And so I know that section 1 has you look at surveillance systems. And so I have put some helpful bullet points for maybe places to start, just to look at different things. And actually throughout the language too, you'll notice, and it's extremely helpful, that there are models linked in different points. And so I've linked a few models here, but there's also models throughout the language that you can look like, or that you can find and look at. And so you might in your work group kind of divvy up who will take what subsections and who will look into what models and see what already exists in Lansing. Yeah, and so new infrastructure for public safety, the Office of Youth Support is mentioned in section 2. And so, we might, in the last candidate town hall that BLM Lansing hosted, there were questions about the youth in the room from PPM wanted to know, like, how were their voices going to be heard and taken into account by elected officials? And there was a lot of talk about different systems that used to exist or could exist. And maybe there was legislation at some point that was written for this, and yet it didn't move forward. And so what are alternatives? What systems could we be using to kind of create this? Section 3, and you might notice section 3 is a little bit longer than some of the rest, and that's because this is really the heart of our economic justice, educational justice, and environmental justice kind of pillars. And so it's interesting because I believe actually within this section, Lansing Promise, or maybe it's not Lansing Promise, but there's a few points in which the BREATHE Act points out examples of cities that are doing these things well. And actually, I think it might be in the next section, but they point to promise programs to fulfill the mandate of BREATHE for college for all. And so, these might be things you might investigate. Does it actually fulfill kind of what BREATHE is looking to do and what we want to see in the community? And so again, just more links for you all. And finally, yes, actually, so this is actually directly mentioned in the local roadmap, is that that Lansing provides an example for what a Department of Neighborhoods and Citizen Engagement might look like. It's up for us to decide, actually, is that true or not, right? Do we feel like a Department of Neighborhoods and Citizen Engagement serves us well? What does that, even look like? How have we been impacted by that? Do we know people who have interacted with this, this department? And so that's for everybody in section 4 in the group to decide if this actually serves us well. So that's the toolbox. And so just provide some points of reference, places to potentially start once we dive into the actual work groups. And so between now and next People's Assembly, in a minute, I'm going to switch over to the survey if you haven't already taken it to sign up for a work group, but we'll be communicating about who will be in what work groups and how that formation will look. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I've missed anything here. I don't think so. We're going to give some free time at the end of this call actually to dig into this. And so if you already know what work group was your #1 choice, to open up that template document and start looking at it, and even opening up the toolbox and maybe start researching some things, investigating some things, reading up, and putting us in a place where we can really start this together. And so we'll do that at the end. So we'll end early so that we can give the rest of the time on the end of the call to do this. And it'll be kind of a free space where we can unmute, we can ask questions of one another. But during that time at the end of the call, I really encourage you to add a resource that you know about, right? Make a comment on the document, or most of these documents should be like actually editable. I don't know if this one is, this might be comment only, but the documents in the work group should be editable. Feel free to add resources that you know about, either comment on the documents, add them in, whatever that looks like. And then also add a question, like maybe you see something and you're like, what would this look like? Or you want to direct our attention to some insight that you've had. So during that free space, when you dive into these things, add resources and add questions to the documents, even if it's not your own work group. Maybe you have an insight about section 3, which is those pillars of justice. And maybe you want to add a resource about, or a question that you're thinking about that you're not, maybe you won't be in that group eventually, but you want to leave it for them to consider. So these are the resources, and please drop in the chat things that you think would be more helpful, how we can support these formations. Again, I think we're challenging what it means to be an expert and to be a part of the community, writing the policies that serve us. And so we might not know everything, and we might reach a limit where we need to find somebody else. And that's great. We might have to play phone tag with some people. I have no idea what's yet to come, but I think we'll discover that together. And so the next thing I want to flip to really quickly is just this survey, which is to help us get into that work group formation. So if you have, many of you in the room today have already taken the survey, which is great. Thank you so much. I encourage you, if we're going to have a few minutes here, to open up the survey, go ahead and, we put together a background at the front end of things just so that for folks who are encountering the survey who maybe haven't been to a People's Assembly before, they get an idea of what this process has looked like so far. But it should be pretty short, but we're essentially wondering what section would you like to invest most of your time in. And so you'll see the outlines of each of the sections here. And so these were some ideas about agreements that we would have with one another to collaborate with our work groups and figure out what a plan would look like for kind of tackling each of the policy sections, to always keep our work in alignment with those priorities that Angela overviewed for us at the beginning of the call, to bring new community members into the process, right, to weigh in on the work. Angela already mentioned as well, like I've been on calls where there's been over 100 people, I've been on smaller calls, and the diversity perspectives is incredibly important. And then the bullet point under that it's incredibly important to center the experience and wisdom of our Black, Indigenous, and people of color residents in Lansing, who experience especially our systems of policing with incredible harm, and our experience is different. So it's really important as we think about how we're going to reimagine community safety. And so to carry out the activities necessary, so that might be research, which might mean like we need to look at what community assets already exist, like what community organizations exist that are in this realm, what current practices do we have, do we need to locate some data, what are different options for enactment, and starting to shape the language of this template to fit Lansing's context. And so those were some of the agreements that we kind of outlined here. So I don't know if this link is already in the chat or not. Yes, okay, yay, great, thank you, Sarah. So go ahead and take that really quickly. That's gonna be kind of our formation from here, and also go ahead and post it on social media maybe. Maybe you want to send it to a friend or a family member in the community, somebody or somebody that you work with, someone whose voice is missing from this conversation that should really be here. And again, like, and I try to write it here, like, but we are really challenging what it means to be an expert. Like, we hope that people don't feel like they need to hold all of the answers necessarily to be in this space. Again, I am not a lawyer. We're doing the best that we can and figuring it out and navigating that together. So yeah, I think that's about it from me before we move into a few more announcements about what's upcoming, but we'll take the rest of the call at the end to really just dive into this and let you navigate it and add questions, add those resources, and then we can just kind of have an informal conversation about what would be helpful. Do we need to reach out to different community partners, or I don't know. We'll figure it out what that time looks like together, but it would be great to hear what you all think of these resources and then other things that we can add.
Awesome, thanks, Jordan. Did you want to say a few words about the Breathe Act?
Oh, yes, sure. Hold on. Let me share my screen again. So we are, let's keep going here. So we are not only working to build a Breathe Act for Lansing, but we're also doing this at the state level too. I mentioned earlier that this roadmap exists not only for the local level, but the state level, and we are building towards that as well. And we really would welcome you to become, if you're not already, a community co-sponsor for a Michigan Breathe Act, or an organizational co-sponsor, maybe both. Maybe you are part of a group or an alliance, or a business, a nonprofit, or you know someone who really champions these values in their community, whether or not they're in Lansing, right? Because this is at the state level. We invite you to send these links. So you can actually scan the QR code on your screen now, but also we can drop the links to these in the chat. But we are building a robust coalition of people and organizations that support the Michigan Breathe Act in Michigan, so that when we reapproach the legislature, we have strong community support, and that they know that this is what the people of Michigan want to see. And we want to see community safety reimagined in a way that serves us all. So please go ahead and take a minute to sign up, and yeah, we hope to not only enact this at the local level, but state and federally.
Awesome, thank you, Jordan. And so as Jordan was just mentioning, we're going to take some time to just be with those documents and process and ask questions. So we wanted to get our announcements out now before we open up into that space. So the first thing we wanted to bring up was that we have been working on a Lansing racial equity scorecard through the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation process here in Metro Lansing. So we're just really excited to tell you that. It's going to be focused on seeing how we're doing and what impact is happening in the community around racial equity. Angela was sharing a memory earlier about how this is something she was asking for like a decade ago. And so we're really excited to be moving on that. It's going to be a tool that can help us not only see how we're doing, but also to encourage accountability in our community as well. But moving along, you're also going to be hearing more about the scorecard during Love Day. So the next slide has a little more information about that. It is going to be, giving you all the cues, Jordan. It's going to be April 29th. So please save the date. We're planning to be live streaming it on our social media. So definitely One Love Global's page, but we tend to push it to multiple pages as well. So Love Day is what it sounds like. It's a celebration of love, and certainly One Love Global's work in the community and the different areas of racial equity and youth organizing work underway. So it'll be a great space to hear about all these areas of work that are moving, to hear a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes, because organizing is such a big moving living thing. And so it's highlighting some of the areas that we'll also be covering during that event. So everything from art to history to healing to health, everything in our work will be covered during that day. So we hope you can join us and save that date on your calendar. The next thing that Angela mentioned a little bit too was that Mordecai and also Flo, shout out to Flo, they've been working really hard to envision and prepare to relaunch and really support the My Brother's Keeper and Girls Equity Network to be supporting youth and adult allyship and ensure that youth are supported from cradle to career or education, that they can have great futures. And so the celebration that we're having to celebrate and to also move that relaunch is this awesome event, and Flo made this poster, the Black Renaissance COVID Era Summit. So we're having a spring summit. It's going to be June 4th. Again, please mark your calendar. And it's also going to be a great celebration of a lot of the work. If you are interested in being a part of the network too, please let us know, and we'll put you in touch with Mordecai and or Flo to learn more information. And we're also seeking presenters for this event too, because it's meant to showcase work happening across the state of Michigan. So moving along, I know, right? Poster is gorgeous. Of course, please save the date for the next assembly. I have that link ready to go if you want to just register now. It is also live on the website now. That's going to be April 24th. I know we expected to move into breakouts for working groups today, but that will certainly be the plan for next time with more of this grounding to support us. So please head over and register. I also set it up so you can register for multiple assemblies at a time now. Yay! Because I know it's hard to register every single month. Yeah, please do that. And thank you, Jordan. We're on to the second to last slide, I think. Awesome. Okay, so we also always want to encourage you to check out the Liberation Policy Action Center, Liberation PAC, to check out the actions that are there. Jordan has been doing a lot of awesome work to get Breathe incorporated into the Action Center and also to center other key policies that are related to this work. So if you have not bookmarked it, please do, and please make sure to check back regularly to see how policy action is moving right now. And finally, we always want to keep these dates in the forefront of our minds, on our calendars, in our thinking as we prepare for the elections this year. I think there's another candidate event happening. Angela, do you have that date? We can always follow up too if you don't have it in your head.
Saturday, April 10th, 2 p.m.
Perfect. Saturday, April 10th, 2 p.m. is another candidate event to hear from folks speaking around these positions. So again, big year. And that's all for the announcements. We'd like to transition at this point to that open processing space to be reviewing the documents we shared, to make sure that you have your survey filled out, to add and process any questions in the chat or aloud. So please feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to add.